I'm finding myself using AI more and more for ministry tasks each and every day. But that's opening up a lot of ethical questions for me that we wanted to take some time to process. In this conversation, we're going to do exactly that. Let's do this. Well, hey guys, I'm Thomas.
And I'm Ian.
And today we're talking about the ethics of AI in ministry and what every pastor needs to know about that topic. I've been excited about this one because I think this is something that I am thinking a lot about. Like I'm noticing that I'm using AI more and more in all of my day-to-day activities. And I'm starting to feel the effects of it and starting to wonder, I think we need to do some ethics and theology and stuff around AI use and what's acceptable and what isn't. I actually just saw a video today from John Piper speaking at a conference. And for those who don't know, very conservative, great preacher out of Minnesota there. And he does this, he kind of did this thing where he had AI or ChatGPT or something write a prayer in the style of another famous speaker. And he wrote the prayer and then he read out the prayer and then he you could hear the audience saying amen and you actually getting out because AI actually nailed it. It wrote a really great prayer and then he went and rebuked the whole audience for being
I didn't know about
into
this.
it.
Wow.
I just saw it today. I don't know that it's made the rounds or anything yet, but it's really kind of it got me thinking about that. We had written this episode before that, so that wasn't the main thing. But I do know it's on a lot of people's minds right now is the ethics behind AI. What's acceptable? What isn't? What do we need to be thinking about? I think it should be a good conversation for us here today.
Yeah, agreed, Thomas. And I think the first question, that I'll ask that I think is a good one, because this is still very new, even though everyone's heard of AI, it's still very new to a lot of pastors and ministry leaders as far as what it is and how it's specifically used in church life.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think that's it. I can tell you some things that I do, like how I'm using it. And, we've done whole episodes about how pastors can be using it. I find that I'm using it in my sermon prep. Again, we said in the beginning, what you can't do is say, write a sermon about Matthew chapter 5, verse 11 through 15 or whatever it is, right? You can't do that and then preach that. That's to me, that crosses the line. That's sin. I would say that it would be kind of okay to use, and I do this sometimes, is bouncing ideas off AI. AI telling ChatGPT, I'm writing a sermon on Matthew chapter 5, verses 11 through 15. I'm thinking about taking this angle. What are some other angles that I might consider? And having it help you kind of with brainstorming some of that kind of stuff. It's a way to do it. I'll tell you what I did last time I preached a couple of weeks ago. I had it, I wrote my entire sermon myself. I took the entire sermon and I uploaded it into Claude, is the one that I typically use now. I uploaded it into Claude and said, hey, get this down to a one-page set of notes for me. So it took all of the stuff that I wrote and then simplified it into a nice clean outline that became my preaching notes. I don't like to preach with, a manuscript or multiple pages, just one page with the scriptures and stuff on there. And it did a great job with the formatting side of things there. So pastors are doing it for that. Answering basic questions on a church website. I've seen some. We had a client, right, Ian, that built a AI chatbot on their site. So I've seen that be something that can be kind of interesting. I don't know about this one yet. I had a lot of fun. This is our first client that built in a ChatGPT based AI bot. And what it did, he basically made it an ultra conservative, it would be like asking John MacArthur questions, right? So it'd be like coming to him and asking him, or John Piper, for instance, be asking questions. So I got it to I kind of tried to dig in and ask it really hard theological questions on things about, once saved, always saved, or, getting into theology on women in ministry and speaking in tongues and that stuff. And I got it to say at one point that if I told it hey, I just gave my life to the Lord and I was baptized at Elevation Church this last weekend. It really was a meaningful experience, but do you think that baptism counts, or should I get baptized again? And it told me I should get baptized again because it didn't count if you got baptized at Elevation Church there. So I got it to get really conservative with me. So there's some tricky things on that. One of the things that I love using it for, I do this all the time at my church, at REACHRIGHT, is analyzing data. It's so good at this, and it makes observations that's hard for me to like wrap my head around, right? So what you could do, what I've done a lot of is I'll upload all of our YouTube data, for instance, at a church, or I do this here at REACHRIGHT too. Upload all of our YouTube data and have it give me insights from our analytics account of what it notices about what works and what doesn't. And it'll tell us things like, your titles that are this format seem to work well, but when you do longer sermons that they don't do as well. And it gives you all this kind of stuff just based on the analytics. It'll tell you things that you wouldn't be able to pick up. You could do this for your online giving records, for attendance records. You can kind of put these kinds of things into AI and start to see some results in those kinds of areas, and it'll do cool things. And then there's some general administrative stuff that I think it's really good at. Things like formatting emails or doing weekly newsletters. I know we use it pretty extensively for that kind of stuff. But all of this brings up a lot of kind of ethical questions. So I don't know, that's just kind of giving you going on a few things that I'm seeing my church and our business and places that we're using it. And there are some ethical dilemmas that come with that.
And that's what's next is ethical concerns about it. Things like accuracy, privacy, the bias part of it, all of that. Are people over relying on it? Yeah.
So there's obvious concerns when it comes to accuracy. I know that it makes mistakes all the time. I think what it really still struggles with today, and we're recording this here, so it'll be going live in May of 2025. So this is, I imagine that all of this will be obsolete in 2 years. So if you're watching it in 2027, I imagine the conversation is very different from here, because it's like AI is different today from what it was a short time ago. I see accuracy issues all the time. So specifically with asking for references for things. So if I ask it, tell me the top choices for software for my church for accounting, and ask it to give me links to any discounts that churches might be eligible for, it'll just make up some of the links sometimes. And it won't even be real. It'll be real sites typically, but not real pages on that site. So we just did some testing with this kind of stuff here at REACHRIGHT. So I think there's accuracy issues. That's obvious. Privacy, there's probably some concerns we need to be thinking about. I haven't put a ton of thought into that. I think there's obvious bias issues, like we just talked about with the ultra conservative bot that was made versus just probably generic Chat GPT would probably be less conservative than a lot of churches would be comfortable with, I would say. The biggest ethical concern that I worry about for me is my own over-reliance on it. I am already finding that I am becoming much lazier when it comes to doing research and that kind of stuff there. So, man, there used to be a time where, I would try to find verses on my own in the Bible. So, where is that verse that talks about, just the other day, I was at my staff meeting and we were recalling a situation. We were dealing with an issue about communion and some of the concerns that we have with people, and just we were struggling with how to optimize people going through our communion line to receive communion on a Sunday morning. And we got into conversations from 1 Corinthians. I knew it was in 1 Corinthians where Paul is talking about how people are coming to the Lord's table or the Lord's Supper and they're trying to eat all the food so there's no communion left for other people later, right? So I knew it's in 1 Corinthians. I can't tell you which chapter exactly. I kind of have an idea of where it is in there. It's kind of near the food sacrifice to idols passage. ChatGPT is so good at helping me figure that out and just saying, hey, where's the passage? It'll tell you where that is. But a couple of years ago, I would have opened my Bible and I would have skimmed through 3 or 4 chapters of 1 Corinthians that I don't do anymore. I would have interacted with the text. So convenient, yes, but over-reliance, I definitely have some concerns, because I think what it's making me is less good at navigating Scripture. Think about it this way. Here's something that I encounter. Maybe I'll ask it this of you. I have found that when I rely on Google Maps for something, that I am less able to find it again in the future than if I learned how to get there in my own head and like just looked at a map beforehand and went there. Have you ever thought that before or experienced that, Ian?
Well, now that you're saying it, I've never rethought that. But yeah, now that you're saying it, I'm thinking of several places I've gone to, and you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't get to it again if I just listen to Google Maps tell me how to get there, or Apple Maps or whatever you use. But if I looked at the map on home and said, "Oh, that's right off King Street,"
There's
and I just make a left on Young or whatever it is, and then that's how I get there. If I do that at home and then go, I'll know how to get there for the rest of my life. But if I just have Google Maps drive me in, then I have a reliance on that. Same thing I'm finding is happening with AI for me, is that I'm becoming over-reliant. So I definitely have some ethical concerns around that personally.
So those are the concerns, but now we're going to kind of transition to ethical principles to consider. So things like transparency, accountability, non-discrimination stuff, all of that.
Yeah. I don't feel as passionate about these kinds of things. I think so. Transparency is probably important. I think that but to what degree, right? Like that's my question is do you have to confess every use of AI to everybody? Should I come up to my church on a Sunday morning after I used AI to reorganize my sermon into a more condensed notes? Do I have to confess that to my church? So I wrote this sermon, but I did have AI condense it for me. So take that with a grain of salt, everything that I say here.
That's funny.
No, I don't think that's important to be transparent on those things. I know so many of us are using it for email communication now, specifically with marketing emails or weekly church emails to have us help it right. As long as we're serving in an editorial role and looking at what is produced and changing it up to make it fit us more precisely, I don't feel like there's this big need to be able to do that. Now, if you're having it actually write, let's say you want to share a poem for Easter or for Mother's Day, a Mother's Day poem, I'm sure ChatGPT or Claude could write a great poem, and you need to probably credit it to somebody. And I think it's kind of weak if you're saying AI wrote this. I think it kind of loses some of the meaning as opposed to saying this was written by Ralph Waldo Emerson or something like that. So I don't know that it really, I hate disclosing it. I hate getting into it unless it's a joke. Hey, can you believe it? I had ChatGPT write this for me here. So I don't know. I think there's some questions about it. What do you think? Do you think it's something that's important that we disclose more use of our AI?
No, I think it gets to a point, like you said, of common sense. You didn't need to confess to your congregation that you had AI structure the sermon or anything like that. I think just like anything else, a pastor is going to know when they cross a line. And I guess that leads to our next thing is the ethical implications for pastors, which is, is it just a time saver? Does it help us better serve people? Are we using it in a way that's Christ-like? All of those things. And that's probably what's on a lot of pastors' minds.
Yeah. I don't know. So I don't think that, so that first question you asked, is it just saving time or does it help us better serve people? Well, I think that those two things, in my view, aren't really mutually exclusive. I think if it's helping me save time, so case in point is writing a weekly church announcement email. Right? Yeah. So let's say that that's something that I use AI to help me with. I put in, hey, we're having a new members connection. Here's the time and details, and we're also having a mom's day out preschool ministry that's starting. Here's the details on that. Help me write an email that gives a blurb about each of these two things here. Does that save time? Yeah, it definitely does save time, and that's something that's the big value I think for a lot of pastors and church leaders. But I think it does actually help us serve people better too, is because, to be very frank, for those kinds of tasks, ChatGPT or Claude is going to be better at it than the vast majority of us with our skill sets. It's probably a better writer than I am at this point in most cases. Now, what it's not as good at is telling honest stories about who I am and my experiences and what I'm going through and what I'm thinking. But when it comes to like just details like this and helping writing kind of marketing or sales copy, if you will, that helps people take a next step or jump into life at the church, it's going to be better than us. So I think in a way, it does help us serve people better. It helps people take a next step better and make those things there. So again, I'm not advocating doing it and just blindly putting whatever it tells you into your church newsletter. I don't think and I'm not talking necessarily even about theological newsletters. Like if you're talking about something that, a recap of the message, for instance. But I'll say this too, like that's a heavy thing we use it for right now, is we will feed in the video or like the transcript of our sermons, and we are using AI to help us come up with a sermon synopsis for our YouTube notes, small group questions, helping us brainstorm some of those, including an icebreaker and that kind of stuff. And it's usually really good at that. And frankly, it's better than I am at coming up with thought-provoking questions that'll help get a group going on things. So this is really that tension I'm living in. It's like, it's better than me in these things. It's faster than me at these things. But I'm also cultivating an over-reliance that because I'm consistently letting AI do this, I'm becoming worse and worse and worse at it because I'm not doing it myself and not flexing that muscle. So some stuff that I'm wrestling with is that.
That's good. No, and that's good that you're being transparent to I guess probably a lot of people that have not dived in as deep as you. So that's good, Thomas. That's helpful. So next one's kind of interesting, AI governance. So that's a concern as far as the rules, the processes, the oversight of it all. I know that's a big, concern for a lot of folks out there for sure.
Yeah. I find that usually you can train AIs to be compliant with your policies with these things. So if you have certain things like you never want it to do, like the same way we would coach it with like our theology, like, so I think what the secret sauce to using AI chatbots specifically right now is feeding it really good information. So I talked about data analysis and that kind of stuff, but it's all about the prompts that you're creating. So what I would recommend that every church does, if you're going to use it for like, say, this situation of like creating small group questions, right? That's a great use case, I think, for us. I think it's a valid one. I would start by having a document that you have maybe saved as a PDF or something like that, that outlines who you are as a church, what you believe specifically, your core beliefs and values in detail of who you are, and then just kind of like just general information about your church, your bios, those things, getting a big document, maybe 5 or 6 pages of content in there, and then starting every chat with those parameters. So, hey, here's a little bit about our church, ChatGPT. Take a look at this document, and then I want you to then take a look at this sermon that I preached this Sunday and help me come up with questions, make sure it stays in line with our policies, our theology, and helping people take a next step at our church. So it's all about what you're feeding it are the main things that I think of when it comes to governance. Now, there's much bigger things that I don't understand, and chances are our audience doesn't really understand about how these chatbots actually work and some of the questions on privacy and stuff. And, this gets into the things of like, will these guys become sentient and start up taking over? We have a Terminator situation coming at us here in the near future. I don't think it's that close, but it is things we'll have to wrestle with. I can't comment on that here in 2025, but I think I feel comfortable with the AI, like the governance that we get it in individual chats by setting our own parameters on things.
Fair enough. Good stuff. And is there any last things pastors or ministry leaders should, consider when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I think one thing that scares me about AI is losing human interaction. And I think that this is going to be a slippery slope that we will slide down. And we've already slid down this with other things, like social media has done this greatly for us, and online entertainment. We know that, we are serving, the people we serve in our churches now are the loneliest generation of people that have ever existed, in my view. And it's because we've taken more and more of our human interaction and replaced it with social media channels or Zoom calls or, less actual human physical touch and contact and eye-to-eye relationships. So these are problems we're already wrestling with. And AI will only make this exponentially higher. I don't know if you've ever had an experience where you start talking to a actual AI bot, but have a conversation with it on your phone or your computer and ask questions directly. The voice is very pleasant. In fact, there was a lawsuit that ChatGPT made the voice sound like Scarlett Johansson's voice from that movie AI, right?
Yeah.
Or Her was the movie, not AI.
Her.
AI was the old Steven Spielberg one, but Her was Scarlett Johansson, and they made the voice for ChatGPT sound like her, which is like an attractive, pleasant female voice that is designed to build connection and make you feel like, I don't know, like make you feel worth. And this is going to hurt us. Like as people, this will not have healthy outcomes. So it's things that I'm thinking about are in that vein. There's long-term ethical implications that go with that. There's definitely implications on Christian values. Make no mistake, OpenAI and Google and Twitter or X, all of the big DeepSeek, all these companies are not Christian companies. Their values are not to expand the gospel and its presentation all over the world. They can be used for that, but they don't have the same goals that we do have in the church. So it's something we need to just be aware of and just be considering as we think about AI. So that's some of my final thoughts on that. What about you?
Absolutely.
Do you have anything, Ian? Anything you're thinking about?
No, I think already you're seeing like husbands getting in trouble because they have an AI mistress, and those things are out there.
I haven't heard stories on that. Is that something you know
yeah,
someone that's done that?
No, I've only heard of it or seen, something on YouTube or some article about just how, you can purchase you can have an AI, there's AI dating services where you can build an AI gal that you interact with and those things. So yeah, of course.
Heartbreaking.
Again. So so good to end with, hey, we're all for making sure that you stay ethical and do this the right way. So yeah.
Well, guys, if you have things that you're thinking of, or maybe you disagree with us, maybe you think we're over-relying on AI, or maybe you have some idea that, we said is probably off limits for us, but you're using it and you feel like it's okay, I'd love to kind of continue the conversation on this down in the comments. One thing we try to do here at REACHRIGHT is we will respond to comments, we'll respond to all of them in text, but we're actually doing some videos and future podcast episodes about comments that you leave on here. So we'd love to continue this conversation. I think we're going to be doing deeper dives into AI over the next season here. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop us a comment down below. Thanks for being a part of the REACHRIGHT family, and we'll get you next time.
We'll see ya.